everyone, my wonderful people. How are you all doing? I hope you guys are okay. I am Salo, the creator behind Hoster, and so I am welcoming you to Hoster channel. What brought me to my channel today is about a disturbing topic that has been on my mind, and I just would like to hear my opinion. Like I would just like to talk about it. And maybe you can also drop your comment to hear your own perspective about this issue. Just recently the EFCC, they came to, they have an office now in Ekiti, and since then people have been panicking. They've been seeing a lot of things, thinking of what will happen after the EFCC has done what they had to do. So I just heard a voice note, a video. I just saw a video on TikTok today hearing about EFCC coming into an hostel. I think a student hostel where they raid the hostel in the early hours of the day, like around 4 o'clock, and they came in and took some of those students. So I just would like to talk about it and, let's see. For decades, Ekiti State was known for one thing. It is education. People call it the land of honor, fountain of knowledge, a state where education was not just important, it was everything. A place where a parent believed that if their children study hard, they earn a degree, and live honestly, they would succeed. Back then, parents sold their lands so they could send their children to school. Teachers were respected, so as doctors, lawyers, professors, civil servants. Today, another image is competing with that legacy that we know. Videos of EFCC raids, young people running, cybercrime arrest, and questions about unemployment. Honestly, how did the state, celebrated as the land of honor, a state known for producing some of Nigerians' brightest minds, become associated with EFCC raids and internet fraud? How did we get here? This is not to defend the crime, and it is definitely not to attack the EFCC. It is just to understand how education, how unemployment, social pressure, or whatever personal choices or whatever opportunities have shaped the Ekiti or the state, the country we have today. How did we arrive at the present? Okay, I grew up in Ekiti, and growing up in Ekiti is it means one thing. You read your book. I know it is also incorporated in some families today, but not as much as previously. But in the past, like back then, maybe 40 years, 30 years ago, you hear it every single time. Parents sing it to their children's ear. Read your book to become somebody. So that's one thing, one message. That is what every child have heard in the past, whether at home, in the school, from the community, because education was not just seen as important, it was seen as the only reliable way or path to a better life. Parents made incredible sacrifices. Some sold their farmlands, they worked multiple jobs. Some went without having basic things at home just to deprive them. They deprived themselves just so that their children could stay in school. The dream was not for the children to become millionaires overnight, just as what we see today. The goal then was simple: get a good education, find a stable job, build a reputable life, and then you take care of your family. Like a teacher who would inspire the next generation, or a doctor who would save life, or an engineer who will build the future, a banker with a stable career. That is all we heard. That is all we know in the past. Even still, some 10, 20 years ago, a lawyer, a professor, a civil servant, to become one of these things, someone the entire community could point to with pride and say, that is our child. And for decades, this formula worked. So education open doors, university degree usually leads to a respectable job, a job that could give you financial stability or a chance to build a good life. And then somewhere along the way, the formula just stopped working. Something changed. The dream of many parents today is no longer exactly the same as it was 30 or 40 years ago. Today, many parents are just under pressure. Should I just say immense economic pressure? The cost of living, I know, has risen. The opportunities feels more uncertain, and they naturally want their children or their child to succeed financially. Some have become less concerned about what their children do. They are more concerned about whether they become successful. You hear questions like, when will you buy a car? When will you build your house? When will you start taking care of the family? You see, so the pressure to make it has become stronger than ever. I remember my own father, like many parents will do, he expected that after school, that life would just automatically, quickly, become, that I will become financially successful. It was not just because he wanted me to become rich overnight at any cost. It was just what he believed. They believed education would naturally lead to opportunity. And for many young people today, that transition has not been as straightforward as it was in previous generation. It was not straightforward as it was expected back then. Now, let's talk about those with jobs and are still struggling. That is another side of this story. People usually assume that once somebody gets a job, the struggle is over. For many people, that is not the reality. Employment is not always the same as prosperity. Across Nigeria, there are hardworking people who wake up even before the sunrise every day to go to work. They put in the honest hours and still find it difficult to make ends meet. By the time they pay for their rent, their transportation, their food, electricity, maybe internet, to support family members, there is usually very little left. And when life happens, like a medical emergency, a broken down vehicle, school fees, and unexpected family responsibility, the salary that looked reasonable on paper is no longer enough. Imagine doing everything the society asks you to do. You study hard, you earn a degree, you completed your NYSC, you even found a legitimate job, or you work honestly every single day. Yet at the end of the month, you are still worrying about how to pay for your bills. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep believing that hard work will eventually pay off? These are difficult questions, and many Nigerians wrestle with this every day. Let's also be clear on this. Poverty does not create criminals, because low income does not automatically lead to fraud. But millions of Nigerians face financial hardship and still choose honesty every single day. They continue working, they learn new skills. For some, work multiple jobs, they are building businesses, and believing that success earned through integrity is worth the wait. There are people like that. Economic hardship can create pressure, it can create confusion, it can even make shortcut appear tempting. But temptation is not the same as destiny, and every individual still have a choice. They still has a choice. The challenge for Nigeria is in twofold: creating more opportunities so honest work can create a decent standard of living, while also building a culture that values integrity over the illusion of quick wealth. Because a society works best when doing the right thing is not only morally rewarding, but also economically sustaining. And let's be fair, Okay, not every young person is unemployed. Not every one running a nice car is a fraudster, and not everyone making millions is doing something illegal. In fact, so many people are making good money legitimately. Some, like those working remotely as software developers, graphic designers, video editors, YouTubers, digital marketers, and so on and so forth. Even fashion designers, event planners, agri entrepreneurs, real estate agents, so many freelancers. There are so many. Okay, the internet has created opportunities our parents never imagined. So today, someone can live in Ado Ekiti and be working for a company in London, Canada. So country is not, distance is not a barrier. That's the beauty of the digital economy. But if legitimate opportunity exists, why do some young people still choose cybercrime? I will answer. Legitimate success usually requires years of learning, years of building skills, years of networking, consistency, even failure, years of failure. Patience is the key. While internet fraud appears to have like a fast money, it promises fast money. One part might take 5 years, while the other promise quick results maybe in 5 weeks. That does not make the shortcut right. It explains why some people are tempted. We can say the biggest competition facing honest Nigerians is the illusion of instant wealth. When a software developer spends 3 years, mastering programming, and another young person buy a luxury car after a few months of fraud, you know exactly what message it passed across. It's not that crime pays forever, but that appearance can distort people's perception of success. So we also have to stop assuming every successful person or every successful young person is a Yahoo boy. That mindset discourage honest people. The rise of internet fraud has not only damaged Nigerian reputation abroad, it has also created a culture of suspicion at home. Today, when a young person, let's say a 25-year-old, launch a successful software company, or maybe when someone build a reputable online business, or maybe when a young person start earning good money through illegitimate work, the first question some people ask is not that, how did you build it? It is, who did you scam? And sometimes, even after they discover that that success is completely legitimate, they still struggle to celebrate it. Instead of admiring, there is suspicion, there is doubt. There is, that is one of the hidden costs of cybercrime. It does not just affect those who break the law, it also casts a shadow over thousands of honest young entrepreneurs, young developers, designers, engineers, content creators, freelancers, and business owners who have spent years building something real. When society begins to assume that every successful young person must have made their money illegally, we discourage the very young people we should be celebrating. So success ain't through hard work, deserves recognition. So, not suspicion. If we want more young people to choose the right path, then we must also learn to celebrate those who are already working it. The social media generation, there was a time when success was measured by your contribution to the society. People admire teachers, doctors, engineers, entrepreneurs. Back then, reputation mattered, character mattered, But today, we live in a very different world. You open Instagram in few minutes, TikTok, Snapchat, and then you see luxury cars, designer clothes, expensive watches, private jet, vacation, and lifestyle that appear perfect. And every day, millions of young people, they scroll through all these carefully edited highlight of other people's life. So now imagine you're a fresh graduate. You have done everything right. You went to school, you graduated, you're working hard, or maybe you're still searching for a job. Then you open your phone and then you see someone of your age posting new Mercedes today, a designer outfit tomorrow, and a vacation the next week. Whether that lifestyle is genuine, whether it is exaggerated, or whether it's even financed by debt, that is usually, impossible to tell from a social media post. So that comparison is real and it can be dangerous. It can create pressure. It can create anxiety as well. And it makes people feel as though they are falling behind in life, even when they are making honest progress. And then, bit by bit, the culture begins to change. So people stop asking, what do you do? Instead, they will ask, what do you have? Success is now measured by the car you drive, the phone you carry, the clothes you wear, even the jewelry you put on your wrist, the trips you post online, instead of your integrity, instead of your contribution or your character. And when appearance becomes more important than values, society begins to send the wrong message. And it's not everyone who appears worthy online, earn their money dishonesty, I must say. Majority, okay, some people earn their money legitimately, but it's difficult to tell. Many people have built successful businesses, careers, and brands through the years of hard work. But social media really shows those years of sacrifice. It only shows the destination. They don't show the journey. So for young people, trying to find their place in the world, that constant comparison, it will create pressure to succeed quickly. So the challenge is not social media itself. It is, the challenge is allowing social media to define our worth. So real success is measured by the life you built, the people you impact, and the value you refuse to compromise even when nobody is watching you. So now I will now talk about, okay, why the rise of the Yahoo culture. Let's be clear about one thing here. Internet fraud did not just begin in a state. It did not just begin in Ekiti State. It did not just begin in Lagos or in Benin or in Ibadan. So the crime is a global problem, and Nigeria is only one part of that larger story. But over the years, certain communities across the country have become associated with this kind of thing. But the question really is, how does something that was once widely condemned become normal to some young people? It does not happen overnight. It begins with influence. Your friend who all of a sudden start living differently, the neighbor who appear to become wealthy almost overnight, someone in the community driving an expensive car, renting a luxurious apartment, or even wearing a designer cloth and spending money freely. People will begin to ask questions. Then you'll hear some responses again and again. They will say, everybody is doing it. It is just online work. Nobody is getting out from it. This is how people, make money now. So when those ideas are repeated every time to that same person, hearing it, something dangerous begins to happen. So the line between the right and the wrong will now start to blur. Then the dangerous thing about normalization is that crime stop looking like crime. it starts looking like an opportunity. And when enough people around you seems to accept that same thing, resisting it becomes more difficult, especially for someone who feels left behind. So some young people are introduced to cybercrime by friends, others are encouraged by people they admire. Some are attracted by the promise of the fast money they are going to get, others don't just want to feel like the only person who is not just making it. But the truth is not everybody that is doing it. Majority of young Nigerians, they wake up every morning to earn a living through their honest work, through skill trades, through their professional careers. But unfortunately, the action of the minority receives the most attention. And that is one of the greatest tragedies. So, because while a few people chase shortcuts, some others, countless of others, are quietly building legitimate business. They are learning valuable skills. They are creating jobs, and they are proving that success in honestly is possible. So real success takes longer, and it requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires resilience, and it requires integrity. So now, let me now come to the question why EFCC is now everywhere. In the recent years, many Nigerians have noticed that the Economic and Financial Crime Commission, I mean the EFCC, have become more visible in its fight against cybercrime. Raids are making the headlines, arrests are circulating on social medias, videos of operations spread across WhatsApp, Facebook, TikTok, whatever social media. So to many people, it feels like the EFCC is now everywhere. Part of the answer is that financial crime has changed. Years ago, many crimes happened in physical spaces, but today, much of it happens online. So money moves across countries in seconds. Scammers can target victims of kilometers away using nothing more than their laptop, their smartphone, and maybe their internet connection. But law enforcement has had to evolve as well. So investigations now rely more on digital evidence. They rely on technology, electronic records, financial intelligence, banking data, and cooperation between agencies, both within Nigeria and internationally. So banks are even now required to monitor and report suspicious financial transactions, making it easier for investigations to identify the unusual pattern that may require further investigation. So as cybercrime has become more sophisticated, the responses from law enforcement have become more sophisticated too. And that is understandable. So every country has a responsibility to protect people from fraud and financial crime. So the EFCC has a legal duty to investigate allegations, to gather evidences, and bring cases before the court. So that responsibility is essential. But here is another question we should ask. Can arresting the victim, if you arrest someone, can arrest alone solve the problem? Suppose one young person involved in cybercrime is arrested today. If the condition that push or attempt others towards the same path remain unchanged, what happens tomorrow? Will that same person or will someone else step into that space? History suggests that enforcement by itself is really enough. Fighting crimes requires more than arrest. It requires creating an environment where honest work is rewarded. Businesses can grow, young people can build careers, and legitimate success feels achievable. While law enforcement addresses the symptoms of crime, the long-term solution requires addressing some conditions that allows the crime to take root. The strongest society do not choose between enforcement and opportunity. They invest in both. They punish those who break the law, and they work to ensure that the next generation have reasons to choose the right path than the wrong one. So where is the problem? I would say the bigger problem now, I know we have talked about education, we have talked about unemployment, we have talked about social media, the cybercrime, and the EFCC itself. Just maybe we have been asking the wrong questions all the way. So maybe the question is not just why the EFCC in Ekiti or wherever. Maybe the real question is, what kind of future are we building for the next generation? Just think about it. How many new industries are opening in Ekiti in every year, or in whatever state in Nigeria every year? How many major investors are choosing a particular state? Let's say, for example, how many investors are choosing Ekiti State as the place to build their next factory or headquarters? How many technology companies are setting up operations here? Or how many manufacturer plants? I think I've even said it earlier. How many young graduates from Ekiti, they produce graduates every year in even Ekiti State universities every year. How many are even still living in that same state, or how many are working in the same state in that same state in Ekiti State 5 years later after school? People are living for cities like Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt. Even work in those spaces are not as much as it was. People have taken off the job. They are leaving Nigeria as well. So we should say Ekiti has always produced brilliant minds. Even our classrooms have produced professors, doctors, engineers, scientists, but most of the time, those same brilliant minds, they build their future somewhere else. Not because they do not love Ekiti, but because they are following opportunities. There is a saying that people go where opportunity lives. If opportunity is scarce, people will move. And when enough talented young people leave year after year, the state lose more than its graduates. It lose ideas, innovation, it lose leadership, it lose next generation of employers. Back then people say that cocoa is one of Ekiti's greatest export. But today, one could argue that it is young people, young people, young men and women educated in Ekiti, raised in Ekiti, full of dreams, who live in search of opportunities as well. But sometimes people don't just leave home because they want to. They leave because they believe their future is waiting for them somewhere else. So if Ekiti and Nigeria as a whole can create an environment where talent can thrive, where business can grow, and where young people can, build meaningful careers and homes, and maybe just fewer people will feel that they have to leave that same place to find success. Because the true measure of success, the true measure of development is not just producing brilliant mind. It is just creating a place where those brilliant minds can stay, can build, can innovate, can inspire the next generation. So let's go back to where the story started. The EFCC raids we see today are not the beginning of the story. They are the latest chapter in a much longer story. A story about dreams, a story about parents who believed education could change a child's future, a story about classrooms filled with hope, graduates carrying certificates and expectation, story about unemployment, economic uncertainty, the rising cost of living, social media pressure, comparison, temptation, choices. So because every society is shaped by choices people make, some choose to preserve, to build, or some others choose to innovate. And sadly, some choose shortcuts that comes with devastating consequences. So let's be clear about something. Crime should never be excused, and internet fraud destroys lives. It steals from innocent people, and it damages Nigerians' reputation around the world. It also undermines the trust that honest Nigerians work so hard to build every day. So those who commit crimes should be investigated, and where the evidence supports it should be held accountable under law. A question that should concern all of us. If all we do is to arrest people without asking, without even creating job opportunities for people to work, without investing in education that can lead to employment, without building an economy where integrity can be rewarded, then maybe 10 years from now we'll still be having the same conversation, because I know enforcement can punish crime, but opportunity can help to prevent it. So Nigeria needs both. And the question really is, are we as a nation doing enough to ensure that the next generation sees honest work, see entrepreneurship, innovation, or hard-earned success as realistic path to a better life? Maybe that's the conversation we should be having across Nigeria. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you for spending your time with me today. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly hit the subscribe button. You can also like my videos if any of those videos encourage you, or I spoke your mind, just to encourage me. I would like to also hear from you.